I'd like to have you rise for the presentation of the colors, followed by the pledge of allegiance by Boy Scout Troop 293. The captain of the colors is Chief Patrol Leader Andrew McBride.
Scouts, attention. Color guard, attention. Color guard, advance. Color guard, halt, on two. Color guard, carry the colors. Color guard, prepare to post the colors. Color guard, post the colors. Will you please follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Two. Color guard, 3, 4. Color guard, retreat. Color guard, right foot. Color guard, and
I've been given the honor today to be asked to introduce Congressman Kevin Brady. One of the milestones that I think is important is that Kevin never moved to Washington, D.C. He wanted to remain in contact with his 8th District of Texas, and he commutes back and forth almost weekly to make sure that he stays in contact with the district. He holds several leadership posts. He's the Deputy Republican Whip and serves on the powerful House of Ways and Means Committee, which has jurisdiction over 2/3 of the federal budget, including taxes, Social Security, Medicare, international trade, and welfare. He's also the chairman of the Health Care Subcommittee and serves on the Trade and Social Security subcommittees as well. So Kevin stays out of the bubble of Washington as much as he can, so he can hold over 50 town hall meetings a year in his district, just like this one. And with that, Congressman Kevin Brady, please come.
Thanks. Chief, thank you very much for not just for introducing me, but thanks for the service that you and the unit provide our community. I came over here from Beaumont to run the Chamber of Commerce for South Montgomery County. Our goal at the time was to create a community where people, families would want to raise their children, whether it be good jobs around. And when I first moved here, there wasn't much between the railroad tracks and Foxtrot. It's changed just a little along Rayford Road. But along with those families and businesses, you need to have good fire protection. You and the team do a great job. Join me in thanking you. Being here today, my theory is every meeting is going to be a good meeting that starts with the Scouts doing the honor guard. I was a Boy Scout myself. My son is as well. I had the opportunity to come over this with the Troop on Citizenship, a year or so ago, and they're an impressive group of young men. Thank you very much for being here today, and thank the troop leader because without those parents willing to give the time, for our Scouts, be a much different world. So thank you as well, sir. Appreciate it. As Chief Hudson said, one of the best decisions my wife and I made was not to move to Washington. We live over here in the Woodlands Research Force in Gosling, sort of behind Bonnie's dance studio, if you've ever had girls or grandkids. And my worry was, we have 2 boys who are 13 and 16 years old, so they are now teenagers. Everyone warned us about it. We thought we were ready. We're not ready. And my worry was, if I moved 1,200 miles away, sooner or later you'd be out of touch with the communities and families and neighborhoods you represent. Look how fast things are growing around our area. Every week there's something new going on. So to stay out of that bubble up there, I commute each week up there. I have more than 2 million miles flying back and forth. We figured out for local Boy Scout troop, I'm now on my 5th round trip to the moon, flying back and forth to stay in touch. And that's the reason. And the reason I do more than 50 town hall meetings a year like this is how I hold myself accountable to you, who I work for. We may not always agree on every issue. My wife and I don't agree on every issue. But you ought to be able to talk to me about it and tell me what's on your mind, and I ought to be able to explain why I vote or my beliefs in certain areas. So that's why I really appreciate you taking time on your busy life to be here tonight. With your permission, I want to give you a quick update on what we've been working on in the House so far, what's coming up here in the next 2 or 3 weeks that are real critical, and then get your thoughts on anything that's on your mind. We started out this year with a new Republican majority in the Senate, so the House got to work immediately. Our first week we focused on jobs, passing the approval of the Keystone XL pipeline, which we think is critical to creating more than 10,000 good jobs, energy security in America. Unfortunately, the President vetoed that bill, but I think it's really critical that we be able to capture North American energy, refine it here in Texas and get it out to our communities and states around America. I think it makes us stronger. The President disagrees. We also, on the jobs part, also focused on a couple of the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare provisions, 2 of which, one really discourages local businesses here from hiring workers for more than 30 hours a week. In fact, a lot of our restaurants and other businesses have cut their workers back to part-time to 29 or so because Obamacare really punishes them to do it. And also there's a provision there that discourages businesses from hiring our local firefighters and volunteer firefighters and police and others who are working that second job. We didn't think that was right. And so we repealed that as well coming out of the House. We turned in to health care. Look, we need health care reform in America. I just strongly believe the Affordable Care Act is not the solution. And it isn't just that I oppose that law. My belief is I'm fighting for our local patients and businesses and families who've been hurt by that law. There's no question, some people have been helped. You can't spend that much money without helping some people. I think it's also hurt a lot more people as well. And so I think there's a better solution that we have to have. These people have to have high quality, affordable health care. They do. And so I think there's a better way, so we voted again to repeal that. That hasn't gone anywhere in the Senate. Then we turn to Homeland Security. I'm one of those who believes you got to shut the back door of illegal immigration so you can keep open the front door of legal immigration. So those who want to better themselves, be part of America, do good for their family, welcome. Welcome. But we insist you come through the front door of legal immigration. And anyone who's, frankly, that front door is busted too. I can't tell you how many families trying to come here the right way takes years and years, thousands of dollars. We really don't treat them very fair. We got to fix that front door, but we got to shut that back door first and do it the right way. Unfortunately, the House passed several times a bill to stop the President's immigration executive order because we believe it's not only will that invite more people coming in through the back door, but it really goes to sort of the checks and balances of our Constitution. In America, it's worked well for over 200 years. Congress makes the laws. The White House, whoever it is, enforces them and implements them. So no president, whether you're Republican or Democrat or in between, there's a bigger issue, which is you don't want any president to have the power to choose which laws they enforce and which they ignore, or to make up laws just out of whole cloth. That works against the Constitution. So we passed legislation out of the House to stop that, reverse that immigration executive order, and basically to tell the President, look, if you want to change this broken immigration system, the right way is to come to Congress and work with us on a solution that will work for both parties. And so that bill, unfortunately, was voted. It didn't get a vote, I don't think, in the Senate. They blocked it every time. And so we weren't able to stop that, but we're looking at some other options, again, thinking about the bigger picture. And then heading into this week, the next week, and the week after that, we've got some major issues that I'm going to vote on in the House. One deals with Iran, a bill that requires Congress to review the agreement the President is developing with Iran and approve it if we see fit. Look, Iran's a terrorist state. They are stepping into the vacuums in the Middle East like you can't believe. If they acquire a nuclear weapon, it's not just Israel, it's not just our allies in the Middle East, but we're at risk as well. So in all our dealings with Iran, our agreement can't say we'll let you do part of it or we'll let you build nuclear weapons when this agreement expires. The only agreement that's right for America is one that forces Iran to completely dismantle their nuclear capabilities and their ballistic missile system. So not only can they not build a nuclear weapon, but they can't deliver it to a neighboring country or sell that technology to a rogue country. I mean, we can't do that. So we're going to be voting on that later this week. We've got two major bills dealing with our military and our intelligence. Yeah, thank you for clapping for that. I'm one of these who believes this world is an awfully dangerous place, and it's getting more dangerous. This is not the time to hollow out our military. We cannot do this. They face threats. I just came out of a classified briefing on terror threats around the world, and we're up against the most well-financed, technologically capable, militarized terrorist group in ISIS that we've ever faced. And anyone who believes if we just back away they'll leave us alone is naive. Because when we see these beheadings on TV, the videos, when you see the setting that Jordanian pilot aflame, when you see these atrocities, those messages aren't for us. Those are recruiting videos for young people in their country, to their cause. They are recruiting for a generation of attacks against us. And so my belief is that when the President asks for authorization of force, I only have two requirements. They're pretty basic. One, the authorization of force should be to completely destroy terrorism wherever it is in the world. And secondly, I won't allow our military men and women to fight with one hand behind their back as they do that. If we're going to send them in harm's way, we get behind them 110%, or we don't send them there at all. We have to be all in behind them, or not at all. And so we have some bills to fund the military coming up I think are very critical. So I'll be voting yes for those bills, just so you know. And in fact, in the recent budget, we voted to set aside some of the budget caps known as sequester and fund our military to the fullest extent. I think that's critical. We also have some votes coming up on our intelligence capabilities. And today, military and our intelligence go hand in hand. We just celebrated E-Day this weekend, the victory in World War II. It was a remarkable achievement. But the wars we're in right now are fought with our military might, but with intelligence as well. And so it's no time for us to hollow that out either. There's three provisions in the Patriot Act, which is, that act is controversial, as you know. It was passed after the attacks of 9/11, but three of the provisions are up for a vote. And let me explain it to you so you can be thinking about how you feel about it. One is the lone wolf provision. And that's a provision that says if there's probable cause that there is a lone wolf in the United States tied to a terrorist group overseas, that we have the ability, our intelligence community has the ability to track that person, again with the court order, but to track them within the United States whether they are physically aligned with a terrorist group or just digitally aligned with them, or even acting, frankly, on their own. And so the question is, should we be allowed to do that, to go after that lone wolf? My thought is yes, but I'd like to hear what you have to say. Second deals with rolling wiretaps. For years, when we've been fighting drug cartels and organized crime, our law enforcement has been able, again, with probable cause, going to a court and getting a search warrant, been able to follow that suspect, not just with their landline, which, you know, so few people have these days, but also cell phone to all their electronic communications. It's the only way to do this. So the question is, can we also do that for terrorist suspects, like drug cartels and racketeering? Can we do the same thing with suspected terrorists within the United States with the corridor? That's the second division. Third one deals with our ability, what I would say, to connect the dots. If our military men and women capture a terrorist, an ISIS terrorist overseas, and from their phone, we see they have repeated phone calls to 2 people in America and calls back. The question is, can we, with an independent court order, can we track who they're calling and who that person is calling within the United States? That's sort of at the heart of the privacy concerns that there are in America today. You know, would they be spying, TJ, on you or on me? But the answer is, out of the hundreds and hundreds of millions of phone calls in the United States, all of which are just anonymous numbers in this big database, if there's probable cause that someone here is talking to a terrorist group and a court approves it, can we track who that person is talking to gather more evidence? My guess is most people believe that that is okay, as long, actually, as they can't look at our phone records because we've done nothing wrong. This is one of those areas where you've got to protect individual privacy, ours, but still give our intelligence community the opportunity to track these people. That one provision has been cited for stopping more than 50 potential terror plots in the United States, including the bombing in New York. And today, just over the last few weeks, you can't open the paper, you can't go online without seeing people arrested in Kansas, Ohio, New York. Well, they haven't arrested anyone in Texas yet, up in Garland. But unfortunately, those groups are recruiting within the United States. And so the question is, should we have that capability? I'd like to hear your thoughts. Then let me finish with this, because I want to get to questions as soon as possible. Here's what I've been working on in the first few months of this session. I serve on the Ways and Means Committee, which is, it's a great committee because it has jurisdiction over taxes, over trade, over Social Security and Medicare, over welfare and healthcare. I lead the healthcare subcommittee. I used to lead the trade one as well. I serve on Social Security. And so we've accomplished, I'm sort of gotten a few things done. The first is a major bill that fixes the way we pay our local doctors so that they'll see more Medicare patients. As you know, for the last 10 years or so, if you're on Medicare, it's probably harder to find a doctor to treat you. And it's because the way Washington reimburses those local doctors, many years they face threats of 20 or 30%. And so a lot of them have just said, you know, I'm just not going to see seniors anymore. And yet there's more and more seniors who need that care. And if there's, my belief is if there's one group in America who needs to see a doctor they know and who knows them, it's our senior population. And so when I took over healthcare 2.5 years ago, my first job, number one priority, was to find a solution. And there hadn't found a solution for 15 years. Well, about a month ago, we not only found a better way, I work with 600 national, state, local physician groups, senior groups, Republicans and Democrats, both the House and Senate, And we found both a better solution to that, to reimburse our doctors, but we also agreed on reforms to Medicare to help save that program. Medicare is so critical. 50-some million Americans on it, senior and disabled. It's growing. It's a huge part of our budget and growing bigger, but it's in financial trouble. So the first step to saving it was to find a better way to pay our doctors. And I'm really kind of pleased that a month ago we passed that bill, Republicans and Democrats, House and Senate, and the President signed it. And so in the future, I think we're going to draw more doctors into Medicare, treating our seniors, which I think is a very good thing. And we made 2 reforms to Medicare that will actually save that program. Now that won't do it all. That's what I call step 1 of 3 steps. So we solve and fix the way we pay our doctors in Medicare. Next, we have to improve the way we pay our hospitals and our nursing homes and others. Because right now, the way we reimburse them, that it's almost a demolition derby. Where we are, they all align toward the patient, which is where I want them to be. So step 2 is improving that, and step 3 is improving the way we deliver Medicare to patients. Giving them better options, letting them have more choices if they want them, or they can just stay on Medicare the way it is. And do it in a way that they can even take the health care they get at work and take it with them when they retire into Medicare. So if it's a plan that works for them. That's harder to do, but we got to take step 1. We had to take step 1, which we did. We have to take step 2. So saving Medicare for the long term is one of my priorities in leading health care. And the other is tax reform. I think the way we tax in America is horrible. We tax savings and thrift and earnings. And right now, between what Uncle Sam charges and what some states charge, some people in America pay more than half of what they earn to taxes. Think about that. The government has a greater claim to your work than you do. And I think that's wrong. I think we're an overtaxed nation. And so we passed 2 of my bills out of the House, and this week we'll have a vote on the 3rd that together cut taxes by about $500 billion with the T. The first bill makes permanent the state and local sales tax deduction. We just all filed our taxes here, or hopefully we did, April 15. States that have income taxes, those families could deduct them, but our states that have a sales tax and no income tax, we couldn't deduct our sales tax. So 2004, I led a group of 7 states to change the law, restore the deduction. It's been in place, but it's temporary. And so the bill we passed out of the House, my bill, makes it permanent. And in Texas, that saves our families about $1.2 billion a year that they don't have to send to Washington. It stays in our local communities and in your pocketbooks. I think that's helpful. The second bill eliminates, for the first time in 10 years, we got a vote on the House floor to repeal the death tax. That's the tax. It's the number 1 reason family-owned businesses and farms aren't passed down to the next generation. It's a tax that says when you work your whole life to build a nest egg, and you pass it away, Uncle Sam can swoop in and take nearly half of what you worked a lifetime to hand down to your kids or grandkids. I think that's wrong. In fact, it's un-American to do that. And so I led a group to bring this bill forward. We passed it. It's going to the Senate, and I don't know what's going to happen there. But I just know that whether it's those who earn their way and had a family farm, family-owned business, or young people starting out today, as a 77-year-old Roy Morton, who has a welding supply business in Conroe, told me, who started out with he and his brother and his uncle 40 years ago. They built their business up. They have 5 stores now. His son and his grandson work with him. He's worked his whole life to build that up. And even in one store, which is about the size of this room, not necessarily a good part of Conroe, between the inventory and the cylinders out back and his trucks, he's almost up to the $5 million exemption just with one store. And his point to me was, I didn't build this for the government. I built this for my family. I just want them to have opportunities. And, you know, and welding isn't really a glamorous life. You know, so this isn't the Paris Hiltons of the world, or the Donald Trumps, or whoever, the Bill Gates. These are average people who get hit by these taxes. So I work hard with people. I don't know if the Senate will take it up or not, but we're going to keep fighting for that. And then finally, this week we're going to vote on a bill that I've got to encourage more research and development here in the United States. We used to lead the world in R&D and innovation. We've now slipped to about 17. China is doing 4 times as much. By the end of the decade, the world expects them to surpass America. But if we do that, that means the life-saving medical breakthroughs, new technologies, energy technology, all that will be done overseas rather than here in the United States. So my bill makes permanent and increases that R&D tax credit, which I think is really important to jobs in the United States. And for all those college graduates who are coming out with student debt, need a good paying job, I want those jobs to be here in the United States. And so we'll take a vote on that this week. So that was longer than I wanted to take, but those are some of the issues that have occurred so far that are coming up here over the next few weeks, and some of the priorities I've got on health care, on tax relief, and hopefully fixing this broken tax code, which I'm saying, frankly. So let me stop. It takes some easy questions. No, that's not going to work. Anything you guys want to talk about? Yes, sir.
My concern when you're talking about intelligence, surveillance, who defines what is a terrorist? The political powers in play at the time, do they define who a terrorist could be?
No, it's actually fairly well set in I'm not an attorney, but in law, in case law, and they have an independent board, the FISA board is what they call it, independent of the intelligence community, that forces them to develop very detailed proposals on each person that they're tracking, and then they make them come back every 90 days to prove, you know, is there evidence still that they may be, so that they don't get a one-time pass, get to go fishing, you know what I mean? They have to come back regularly and prove that they can still, there's reason to follow this person. It is, despite what we read in the papers and read online, you'd be surprised at how few terrorists we're tracking. I mean, you get the impression from the media that they're tracking thousands of people, and every call we make is being monitored, but in truth, and I can't give a number, but it is remarkably focused. And unless one of us in this room is either making calls to a terrorist group or getting them from them, there's just no chance in heck that they're following our activity. Because that's what the thought of that's unacceptable to me. I don't trust the government when it comes to privacy at all. So that's why I want all these checks and balances in place. It's a hard balance, you know what I mean? Because we use my worry is, you know, how much privacy we give away using this phone and even getting in that car out there, frankly, is we give up a lot more than we'll ever do for surveillance, but it worries people. So what do you think? What do you think about this?
About
surveillance and intelligence and, you know, checks and balances?
I don't feel that they should be storing all of our metadata for future use, but I think the appeals court just ruled that to be unconstitutional anyway.
Yes, it's not within the law. You know. So that will go to the Supreme Court at some point here. I think there's 2 other courts that are looking at it as well, but either way, I think that is going to the Supreme Court, and so we should have a sort of a final decision on that.
Well, I think a lot of things are our own fault by assuming that when you post something on the internet, even though it may say it's private, but once you have the information out there, it's out there forever.
It is. I keep trying to tell my teenage sons that that's the case. I'm not sure that's safe. It is a concern. It is a concern. Yes, sir.
Yes. talk about trade, what it is that you deal with.
Yeah.
Are you in favor, or are you publicly in favor of fast track authority, giving the president more rights to bypass Congress, the Senate? All these bills, all these trade agreements, promise 20, 30 years, great job, but the city take one job.
The answer is not only yes, but I'm one of the leaders of that bill in Congress, and can I tell you why? America's pretty free. You know, you can go to the mall, you can go anywhere you want and buy products from all over the world. But when we try to sell our Texas and U.S. products to those countries, all of a sudden it's, America need not apply. So it's one way in the United States. We don't get a chance to compete in their countries. These trade agreements, I call them sales agreements, is about basically insisting if you're selling in the United States, that we get to sell in your country. We get a level playing field. So our farmers and our manufacturing technology companies are allowed to compete for your customers. In the countries we have trade agreements with, they buy 12 times more per person of American stuff than countries we don't have agreements with. We have a big trade surplus with those trading countries. The countries we have problems with are the ones we don't, like China, for example, and others, who don't play by the same rules. So, yeah, I'm not only a big supporter of this bill, and I'll tell you in a minute why I think it's important to you. But to me, trade's almost a bigger issue. It's really economic freedom. If you and I build a better product, a better iPad, or the next best phone, we should have the freedom to sell it throughout the world with as little government interference as possible. And if someone else builds a better product, we should have that freedom to buy it for our families and our businesses. The question is, who should have the power to decide what's on the shelves and how much we pay? Is it government? Is it special interests? Is it you? I vote you. I think you ought to have the power. My wife, to stretch our paycheck, I want her to have the broadest choices on the shelves at all sorts of prices. And I don't want the government telling me what they ought to do. So I'm really strong supporter of trade. This bill we're voting on actually doesn't give the president power. It muscles up Congress's power. What it says, sort of four big things. It says to this president and the next, if you're negotiating trade agreements, you have to negotiate to our objectives, Congress's objectives, and that would be, using sound science when our corn or wheat or whatever our aggies are selling around the world, so they don't block them. That you respect labor rights, environmental rights, you protect America's intellectual property. So we tell the president, you have to negotiate what we want you to. Secondly, we force any president, not just this, to consult with Congress, to open up, share the agreement, the language with us, and we're allowed to even be part of the negotiating sessions. That's power for us. The third thing we say is no president can pass a trade law or enactment until Congress has approved it. So no executive orders on trade. Final thing is, what we say is if you will do all these things, we will have an up or down vote within 90 days. That's all we say. We hold the final say. If we don't like the agreement, we vote down. If we do, we pass it. The good news is we're going to make this president and the next for the first time put that whole agreement out to the public for at least 2 months. So everyone in America can take a look at it, decide if it's worth it for us. I think that's important power for Congress to have. And for Texas, it's huge. We're the #1 selling state in America. We ship and sell more than any other state in the country. We got 3 million jobs, all tied to trade. Houston is the fastest growing export region. So for us, it's big for jobs, for these agreements to occur. And our sales, Texas's sales, are growing twice as fast as the rest of the economy. And the jobs, we took a look at what kind of jobs it produces. And the jobs pay a little more than average jobs, and they hang on through tough times. And so I probably have a different view than you. Tell me your thoughts on it.
like I said, when Bush, the HW was for him, and all we had all these agreements, and it seemed like, talk about it, corporations are pushing, and that hurts Americans, workers. So it seems like, you see a settlement of little good, and then, you read about these companies or these foreign multinationals suing our government. Government passed a law that they are object to their regards to trade. So that's just something, just in the only the billionaires, where they are only ones benefit.
Maybe afterwards we can talk about a couple of those provisions. Because I've led trade for many years, almost all those are American provisions that when a local company, Anadarko or CB&I, or there's a ceramic factory in Congo, when they sell in Brazil or Mexico, we want to make sure their rights are protected, that foreign country can't take over their factory or take the land or just take it, period. And so afterwards, if you don't mind, I'd love to visit with you about that, because most of those provisions in there are all about protecting America. So, but no, there's honest disagreements about this stuff. I just really believe we should have the power, you and I, when it comes to trade, not the government. So that's it. Yes, sir.
On energy, the current issues with the ban on exporting.
Yeah.
And I know you run the trade, so you probably very clear. Along with the Jones Act.
Yeah.
And some of the other issues.
Yeah.
Right now the energy industry, it could use some efficiencies, and I think downstream help that. But right now we're dealing with a product here that we can't refine locally, and having to deal with products that we have to import, heavy crudes, to refine in our refineries. It seems like we're kind of opposite. We should be refining our products from America, support America first, support us with our oil, and quit importing heavy crudes that really could be, they could be refined in other countries. Which, what do you feel about that? The ban on crude sales outside the United States without being pre-refined, and then the Jones Act, which also costs us transferring between our own ports.
I don't think there's any question we should be exporting our excess energy. I think right now there's a $10 a barrel cost to America just because of that provision. So not only would we create, I think crude oil selling would create 155,000 jobs in Texas. So big for our families. But I think we could deal a big blow to Russia, in Ukraine, and in Europe, because those countries want America to be a reliable energy partner, not Russia. And I don't know why the president hasn't already stood up and said, we're going to turn the faucet on. May not start tomorrow, but it is coming. You can count on us, because I think it would deal a huge blow what Putin wants to do around the world. So I like to see it both for jobs, and it would strengthen America,
Sure.
Which I think makes sense. On the Jones Act, I know what you're saying, that's a tough one. That's a tough one to change. Politics are pretty rough on that, but maybe there's some changes that can be made so that our refineries, for example, in Texas, could use some of those ships, the ships to the East Coast, for example. I think that would sort of allay their worries, and we could still be selling more of the product. So
About an $8 surcharge.
Yeah, it is.
In our own country.
Yeah, and we've got such an abundant supply of natural gas and energy and technology. Energy's the technology industry now. And these are good paying jobs. It's not just for the machinists, it's not just for the PhDs, but energy offers jobs to families that don't have high school
We've seen a
education.
huge reduction. I mean, people are getting laid off every day. We're getting thousands of people announced layoffs, and they're slashing people's jobs.
I'd like to get those jobs back.
I would do.
How can I ask this? How many of you think we ought to be exporting our excess energy to other countries around the world? How many think that'd be a good idea? How many think maybe not. Or sort of thinking. What do you think? How many think we ought to be able to export our excess crude oil and natural gas around the world? And obviously we're going to use all of, I sort of believe in the bluebell theory, which is let's eat all we can and sell the rest. You know what I mean? Let's use all we can and sell the rest that we don't need, because I think it would really help the economy here. Other questions or thoughts? Yes, ma'am.
I actually have two, I guess, kind of questions / comments. The first one deals with this Iran nuclear thing going on. As a U.S. citizen, can I just tell you how mad I am that we would even sit down and negotiate without first demanding that our 3 U.S. citizens being held in Iranian prisons are not first released? That should have been a condition for us to even come to the table to deal with these people. And I want to know, has anybody up there in Washington picked up the phone and tried to call Obama or John Kerry and say, hey, when are you going to bring our citizens home?
Answer is yes, multiple times, and we get the same response we got when we were trying to free that U.S. Marine held in Mexico, which took forever, that they're working on it through the diplomatic chain.
But what does that mean? I mean, really, to me, that says...
It means it's going to take forever.
Right. And I don't understand. I mean, the U.S. has some muscle here, and I don't know why we are afraid to flex it when we have probable cause.
I know.
And I'm tired of Obama and anyone else going around and apologizing to all these other terrorist nations for, oh, we're so sorry. No, we're not sorry. I'm not sorry. I mean, they're U.S. citizens. They deserve to be home with their families.
I agree.
And it just makes me so angry. And I don't have any kind of platform other than through you, to put pressure on anybody to do anything. I mean, I've signed petitions. I've been on social media. I've tried to exercise my rights as far as I know them to be.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing nothing, and it's very disappointing because, quite frankly, it makes me not want to leave the country because guess what? If I go out of the country to visit a relative and suddenly I find myself arrested on some sort of trumped-up charge because really I'm just an American over there, you think my country is going to do anything for me? I have no faith in that.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a
Just
Marine
saying.
veteran over there, a pastor, and a reporter that are all being held on these weird charges that don't make any sense, and our country does nothing for the citizens. I'm very frustrated, and I'm
It
disappointed.
should be. I don't understand. It is going to be part of this vote on Iran agreement. I guarantee it's going to be raised.
Or does the Senate share the same concern, or is it only the
I think
House?
so. No, I think so. The House is always louder, more boisterous, but that's because we have 2-year terms. We're, I think, close to the people. And so, yeah, but I do think our 2 senators, Senator Corn and Senator Cruz, they're on top of it. They get this in a moment, so.
Well, I would just encourage whatever, be the squeaky wheel, do whatever you need to do. That's why I voted for you, is to represent the U.S. citizens. So, bring our guys home.
Yeah, thanks.
And then the other thing is about the tax reform. That's great, for cutting taxes. Everybody wants to have more money in their pocket. But what is Congress going to do about the out-of-control spending?
Yeah.
Our economy is going to implode.
Yeah. It actually, can I tell you what? It ties in. Here's why. I think spending cuts can get us halfway to a balanced budget. It actually has got us a little more than that already. We're going to need a much stronger economy to finish the job, not just balance the budget. That's not good enough. We have to start paying off this debt. $18 trillion, it's dangerous. And it's going to land on those young people who were here earlier tonight. We're spending today and they're going to get the check. And not only that, but they're going to have higher taxes, higher interest rates, and fewer jobs. So their American dream is going to be much different than ours because we're not getting our spending under control. So we cut the deficit here in the last 2 years by 2/3. Everyone's applauding. It's not good enough. It's nowhere good enough. We got to finish the job, and I think more spending cuts where it makes sense because we still waste way too much money in this government. Plus, tax code that actually encourages new investment in the United States and gets our economy going. You do that, and you're going to not just generate balance the budget, we're going to have the revenue to pay down the debt, start paying down the debt. So I think that's one of the reasons I'm involved in the tax reform, besides how unfair the code is we have today. I think it may be key to the country's financial future. That and getting our spending, not just the day-to-day programs, but we've got to figure out how to save Social Security, which is in financial bad shape. Medicare, same. We've got to find a good way to save those in the long term.
What about welfare reform? Is anything going to be done about welfare reform?
Yes, there is. It's going to come through our committee on Ways and Means. We have a specific group working on that right now. The welfare reform that was passed in the mid-1990s, signed by President Clinton, was good welfare. But here we are, I think some of the states have backslid on it. And today, a couple of thoughts, you guys probably already know this. Not counting Social Security and Medicare, people have paid in money. But we have more people on welfare today in America than are working full-time. In about 35 states, welfare pays more than the minimum wage. Some states it pays better than $15 an hour.
What does that say about our minimum wage?
Yeah. Well, what's it say about welfare? No job, no welfare should pay more than a job, in my opinion. And today, you can actually get on public housing when you're 18 and never leave it. Never leave it. And it seems to me, look, we got to give people a hand up. We got to help them get that skill. We got to help them get back on their feet, no question. But trapping them in these programs where they never get out is wrong. I mean, if you're a single mom with a couple kids in inner city Houston, you're almost trapped in the housing, food stamp. You know what I mean? Oh, well, I mean, you're almost trapped.
Yeah.
And so, how does that help? And we got to figure out a way out. The minimum wage, I'll say, our goal shouldn't be to raise the minimum wage. It should be to get people off and get them into higher paying jobs. And that's why it's a training wage, nothing more. You know, and I tell you what, there are single moms who've been on the minimum wage way too long. Let's get them a skill. I'd rather invest in helping them get a skill. In my way. So yeah, you're going to see welfare reform. We're probably going to start with housing. We've done some in food stamps because right now, 1 out of 7 Americans are on food stamps, which is way too many. And so yeah, we got to end these. I know government's well-intentioned, but you're trapping a lot of people in the system. They'll never get out their whole life, and I don't think that's right.
Well,
What do you
it
think?
makes the unemployment number is really a false number because so you hear all these politicians saying, oh, unemployment is only this now because of me and everything that I've done, and I'm so, but really they're not great at all because unemployment is not a true unemployment number because it doesn't count the people who have given up.
Yeah.
And they're just on welfare now.
Our unemployment's really a little over 10%, and the percentage of adults, like 18 years to 60, who are working, is lower than it was when the recession ended. We've actually gone backwards in that area. So, yeah, I'm glad every month when we see new jobs, I'm glad for every new job we create, but this recovery is so slow. It's about half of what an average recovery is. We're missing, at this point, it was a tough financial crisis. I get that. President Franklin deserves time to lead and work it out. There's no question of fairness. But here we are, 5 years after the recession ended. We're missing about 5.5 million jobs. This should be back right now. Enough to put everyone looking for work in 45 states back to work. They should be back. So anyway, long story short, I agree with you on welfare reform. And it's not just those who game the system. You know, I'll tell you, we work on disability, other issues. There's people who need help that don't get it because they don't know how to work this system.
Right.
I mean, they're just going about their life. They're just trying to help their families. You know, they struggle to try to get some help, and others, man, they game the system. So I just want to help people who need help, and then help others get off it. So that makes sense?
Yeah.
I think so. Yes, ma'am. Then we'll come back here, okay?
I have a couple of comments
Yes.
and a question also. First of all, regarding the data thing, you know, where we're doing right now in this society, give it up. You have no freedom. I mean, everything you do is now being tracked, regardless of your opinion like that. If it makes this country safer for me, I really don't care. We track anything else now. It's already done with cell phones, anything else. The moment you even do anything, the fingerprint, that was a big thing years ago. Oh my God, my fingerprint is going to track us. Now people don't think about that. Now I don't think about this much here. Also regarding the whole thing like banner and like that, you know, the great people, sometimes it's better for government not to be involved in it. Usually it's me getting things done with other ex-presidents and others who can make things happen. Same thing with the two reporters that were in South Korea, that whole situation right there. The president was involved in that. That was kind of like others who made that happen. So therefore, government does not need to be in all of that involved there because we cannot risk any more troops losing their lives. I'm sorry, I'm military. I'm not putting that out there. You know what I'm saying? I think that if you take a chance and you travel, things happen. I travel internationally all the time. I go to China because I go everywhere. I know my risk and no responsibilities also. Okay? So therefore, you have to be aware of where you are and what you do at all times. And I really don't think we need to put our military back into such a situation. We have too many deaths. I don't want to see any more of my comrades fall.
I think, though, you were saying however we do it.
However we do it.
We ought to
Your
get
way
those
was
folks out.
also, however we do it, and first thing you think about is, oh, send the military.
Yeah, no,
Actually, like,
And then also regarding the welfare situation going on out here, welfare, don't just think of inner city, welfare also hits the rural areas and countries of this United States. So don't just think that it's in your inner cities. You're talking about the rural areas, population, they're sitting all out here in Montgomery County, they're sitting out there in Grimes and everywhere else. So just don't think that it's just inner city that is being affected by the welfare system. That's the welfare system, that's gaining a welfare system. Everyone is out there for their own, and let's just be real about that. But my one question really was, basically, was immigration. You had said that front door, you need to really fix that front door. And close
Shut
that
it,
door.
right.
Right, okay, so what is a good example in your opinion of what could happen front door?
Right now, the immigration system and bureaucracy just takes forever to get through. They lose fingerprints, sets of fingerprints. We've had somewhere, the husband and wife have applied together. Wife's been approved for 8 years. The husband's still waiting. They came in together, and they're still waiting to do it. We have people who are here to live on visas who've applied right on day one, who followed every step. And now they're at risk of being deported. Not because they did anything wrong, but because the bureaucracy sort of timed them out, you know what I mean, and didn't react. That's why I think so. The other thing, part of the front door, we reward visas sort of based on who you know and the lottery system, rather than on what can you contribute to America. I think immigration ought to be about strengthening America. So just because you have a cousin or a family member doesn't necessarily mean that you're first in line if there is an individual who can bring a skill to America, you know, that makes us stronger. So I'd like to see that change, the visa lottery where they just draw 50,000 names out of a hat. I don't think that's right either. Give me 50,000 people who do something, have a skill we don't have, or, you know, can work somewhere our folks don't. Those are some changes I'd like to see. The other thing is, I think we ought to train up every American who needs to work. And if we've got job gaps beyond that, let's fill it with people who actually want to make themselves in our country better. So those are some of the changes. What about you? What would you do?
Well, we're already saying that give jobs to those who really want them. So that's the reason why we have such a huge, legal immigration population going on now, because no one wants to, cut the grass and anything like that. I mean, we all did as a kid growing up, and now it's like, as soon as you can take your first dollar, and you're going to be thinking, I'm going to be long behind, I'm going to hire someone else to do the job. But I agree in the sense that we need to increase our minimum wage. It's just way too low. I'm not saying that it should be as high as anything else, but again, it goes back to the whole system again of if you increase the minimum wage, it affects everyone in a better way because you have one leg to spin, which means it's going to go through the cycle a lot better than everyone else needs to touch that money, right? But also it goes back to the whole thing about the welfare situation. When you are living as a rural area with no car, no public transportation to get you to a job, or if you live in a city and you have to get to work, it's really difficult for $8 and some odd cents for $7.25 right now. You cannot get to work. Something has to happen. So those people that you see flipping those hamburgers, I know when I started off in college or anything like that, I worked on minimum wage. I worked my way through. I joined the military. I did all these things. I had GI Bill. I served, but not everyone's going to do it my way. But there's always different ways to do it. We have to get you both. Okay, so we can't just pigeonhole. We just can't make it so that you put everyone in one basket. And so the immigration goes the same way. You have to entice those to come here, and they have to be willing. Because that I don't want you to just come here and just come here. Please bring something to the table to make this country a better country than what it is. But at the same time, we do bring the talent, and as soon as they get the talent, they go right back to their own country and take that talent with them.
Can I, a couple thoughts. One, I agree with some of those points. Thanks for your military service. Appreciate that very much. There are people right around us. I was just at the food bank, off 242 there, and they use all volunteers, and it's amazing how the community, we've got families right within shouting distance of us that are really struggling. So you're exactly right. On minimum wage, maybe a small business person perspective, because I don't worry about the Walmarts of the world and McDonald's. We've got a lot of small businesses here locally. And, for example, if you raise the minimum wage, the president would like to go to about $10. A new proposal in Congress that they're going to, I think our Senate Democrats are going to take on is $12 an hour. But let's just say $10. You're basically forcing a local business to pay $5,000 more for every worker they have. Now, they don't get any more sales through the front door. They're getting more income. You just say, you better come up with the money. So if you got 10 workers, you're being forced to pay another $50,000. You may not have. And so what happens, I come from a Chamber of Commerce background, so helping start small businesses, helping grow. Here's what they do. They cut workers and they cut hours. They're less willing to hire young workers. They're even less willing to hire young workers who don't come from a good background because they want to take a risk. So the people you most want them to give that first chance to, my view, get hurt. Which is why I think we ought to look at that as a training, because that's what it is, give people a chance. Because as soon as they can show they're willing to show up on time, they're willing to work, they're moving up. I mean, there's no question about it. That's why I think the target ought to be getting people off the minimum wage, including that single mom who, didn't get even a GED, is just trapped. Man, I'm willing to help her, or him, this and that situation. Get off the minimum wage. I just think you actually hurt some of the people you're trying to help just by raising. Just my opinion.
There has to be another decision. There has to be something that's going to make that person, when small businesses have to give something to someone to say, I can't give you a $10 or $15 wage job, but I say if you work with me for X amount of time, I can't see that work with you to get you something else, right? I mean, so you can take next level.
Tony, you'd be surprised how many businesses right around here, as soon as you can show a young person or anyone shows that they show up on time, they're ready to work, and have a good work ethic, and they're off that minimum wage fast. Because they want to keep them. And unfortunately, this room is full of a very strong work ethic. That's not always the case. So they're always looking for those, especially younger people who have those cases. Yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. Tell you what, you've had your hand up. I think after a dozen times, you should be called on. That's my rule of thumb. It will come to you. Is that okay? Sorry.
programs like distributed education. We had a shop. We had cosmetology.
Yeah.
We had classes like that.
Yeah.
So that students in high school had a job when they graduated. Or they had means to earn money to put them through school. They also had an incentive to stay in school. Not everybody in school even wants to go to college. But if they have a means to get there, other than taking on student debt, that keeps them out of the streets. You know, if they know, I mean, there's so many kids that say, why do I have to take algebra? How's this going to help me in the real world? Why do I have to, why in the world would I have to read Beowulf? You know?
Have you been talking to my teenager?
I heard it from my teenager. Why do I have to read Beowulf? Well, let's see. You got to graduate. But if they know that they've got to have certain attendance or grades, I would not even say grades. I would say attendance. Because once their attendance falls off, that's what happens to their grades. That they can enter into a program like, everybody needs somebody to fix their car. Everybody needs somebody to put their hair. Those jobs, some of them pay a lot of money.
Yeah.
And there are opportunities. And so I know that school districts, I know it's up to a school district whether to carry that minimum program or not. Congress, I know, has added a culinary course.
Yeah.
And
They do welding, they do shop, auto tech, they have it.
do they?
Oh, yeah, they do.
They?
The good news is, what you just described is making a comeback.
Well,
For a while there, it was everyone's going to college, so any of those vocational was sort of a second-class citizen, and we can't do that. But now, we know not everyone is destined for college. And in fact, with the dropout rate so high among some of our kids, that you got to find them something that they can see themselves making a living on. And so, it's funny you say this, because we've been touring. I try to be in schools a lot. I'm not a teacher. I just want to find out what's going on. And a lot of our school districts in my 9 counties are making a big push in this area. Nursing, cosmetology, which you go, man, I don't know what kind of life that's going to provide. You talk to students, most of them are learning it so they can use it as a part-time job as they work their way through college. You know what I mean? So they got a plan. You talk with the welding guys, this is not a second-class job for them. They will tell you, I'm going to be this type of welder. It pays $85,000 to start. If I go on and get this skill, I can get more. Well, this is well planned out. Here's how I'm going to raise my family stuff. And so it's what we have to guard against is sort of from Washington, a decree that everyone's going to school, so everyone's taking all these courses. We know that won't work. We got to give local control in these areas. And here's the good news: right around us, because we have a really good community college system, just woven throughout it. We got all these kids. I was up at Splendora the other day, which isn't a wealthy school district at all. 1 out of every 5 of their seniors will graduate with an associate's degree from Kingdom College. 1 out of 5 will already have half their college done, because that school district is tied to that community college, and they work it all in. And by the way, they also have a welding, auto tech, hospitality. They even have an algae. They have a group that grows algae and sells it as a vocation in their high school. So you've got some pretty innovative stuff already occurring, but we need to do more of it.
so does the federal government not play any kind of a role like a grant or laid up to the school districts? Don't have a lot of money.
Yeah, not much would be the answer, and probably rightly so. We want to leave that local control to students and to schools. What I worry about is if we decree some type of curriculum nationally that doesn't allow schools to do that, that would be a mistake. Yes, sir. Fine. And by the way, is your arm tired? Oh, I know. Hey, I should have noticed the first time. Yes, sir.
I think, it's very, everybody agrees that, obviously people cannot
live off minimum wage, but like, I'm more in supporter of giving people skill. So coming from education, from my family's in education, friends in education, I've noticed that, welding, cosmetology, all these things we're talking about, they're not being promoted in schools until the kids have failed a couple of years.
Oh, is that right?
And then
Did
it's
they
like,
get
okay, so there's no hope for you to go to, to go to college, to go to A&M or
Yeah.
University of Texas. Why don't you go into, why don't you become a doctor? That should be kind of since the beginning.
Yeah.
Since
Yeah.
freshman year, hey, I like to work on cars, I work with my dad or with my uncle or whatever, but it's not promoted because it's testing. So we standardized testing and
Yeah.
the standardized testing tells you, okay, you have to take this, and that. Now, there's not much room for technical jobs.
Yeah. Two thoughts. I don't know if every school district's like Conroe, but in 10th grade, you've got to sort of identify, it's not a major, but it's sort of like that. That your child has to identify sort of where their track is going to be so they can be, we're talking about this, my son actually wants to go in welding, so he's following one track in FFA and ag and biotech and all that stuff. But you sort of start picking tracks in Conroe and they start focusing on those areas in your 10th grade, which I think sort of follows what you're saying ought to be one that way.
When your son, he comes out of high school, he's not going to start at the college now. He would start a lot higher because he has a skill set.
And your other point, I don't know what we're going to do about college today. It's just insane.
That's another.
How much these
point.
kids?
If he has a skill, he doesn't have to go.
Yeah. Kids are coming out of college with ungodly amounts. And we all, what? We did, man, I met.
It's just like the generation of sin. It's like almost like a rite of passage. I was fortunate enough, like I said, I'm a GI girl, I work part-time, I was in the Air Force and all that, so I was pretty fortunate, I came out very good in college.
Oh, you served the country too, by the way.
But it's like, it was like a rite of passage for them.
But man, they've got 100,000, 200,000. I met a couple the other day. They're engaged. They're going through medical school, but together already. They're not graduating. They have $1 million in college, and they're like 26 years old. Their interest is $4,000 a month, and they're not out of school. $4,000 a month. It just, I forget what he was talking to me about, because I kept looking at him thinking, how do you drag around $1 million?
There's a lot of people sitting over there that don't even have a degree.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them, because they go to college, and everybody, saying everybody has to go to college. That, people believe you have to go to college, but I was sitting home there, and then they figure out, well, college is not for me, but now you have 40,000.
And I don't think the answer is to wave a wand and just wipe out all that debt, because colleges just, they'll be more expensive. That cycle will just go up. So you got to find a better solution. Maybe part of it is for students, whether you're coming out of high school or you're that single mom, you want to go back and learn a skill. If everyone's had a better idea of what their job they're going for pays, you know what I mean? They probably pick a degree, they pick a school that they can afford. You know what I mean? That gets them a degree, but without that kind of debt.
It's like one Harvard for the ends. No offense, but I know me. I was not going to go to Harvard to do a degree in psychology, but I don't work in field psychology. I work in oil and gas industry. So therefore, it just sways. So while I was in $100,000 for a Harvard degree, the man is knowing that he's not going to pay or whatever else. So, and just go to school.
Mr. Brady, any people's schedule, sir?
You guys, I'm standing right on top of you and shouting over your heads. Are there any questions or anything on your mind that need to be aware of? I'll ask you guys first and then mine too. Okay? Anything I need to be working on?
When you say immigration in the backdoor part, that's pretty slow. I've been in Washington, D.C., from New York City, I come to D.C. I see the illegal immigration, and it has something now with President Obama and forcing him to protect the border. It's increasing our welfare, I also served in the military for 23.5 years. I have 12 combat tours. I've been to countries that are, use us as pawns, like to no avail. You'd be surprised what it's like for a soldier on the calm side.
being in another country and how they treat you. I went through immigration. My wife is a South Korean citizen. My daughter was born while I was in Iraq. It still cost me close to $3,500 for my daughter who was born on a military installation to immigrate here. And she was a citizen. But because I was not present in the country at the time, I had to go through DNA testing. I had to prove it yesterday. And I had no lawyer. And you want to know the true cost of immigration between without using a legal representative? It roughly runs about $7,000. And that's not including the travel back and forth to the country, nor the translation fees. An average page of translation is about $400 for a legal translation. So I've been in and I understand it. As far as Obamacare goes, it's got to change. I'm a licensed healthcare administrator. I've sat on the contingency board for many years. That 475 section law is huge and it's incredible. You're two that are going to be doctors. If they choose family practice and they do it for 5 years, their student will go away. But if they specialize, they're in trouble. That's just the way the law is. People don't understand. There's only about 5 chapters that actually address us. Everything else addresses the administration part of the law, of how bills are being paid. You've got to be so curious in how you're changing the payment system from back there. You have to, because just last year they brought on the APO Act. And knowing that the APO Act is just coming into line, now you're telling me that there's a whole other system that's going to...
It hasn't been decided. It is all, here's the way I like to do things. I lay out my bills in a draft form, invite all healthcare community, tell them what's right, tell them what's wrong. We did this last November for hospitals and inpatient, outpatient. We're trying to solve the way they butt heads. So we got back so many ideas, it made us rethink this. So I'm going to go out with version 2.0, get to listen again before we make any moves. So if you don't mind, if I could get your email so I can send you what we're thinking of, so you can tell me.
And the reason I say that right now, under the way law written, a physician can bill you separately than the facility that you're at. So a lot of times you get a bill, you go to the emergency room, you got a bill for $6,000. Then 2 weeks later, you get this next bill for $1,500 to pay the doctor, the nurse practitioner, the PA. Well, in my mind, those are agents of that facility. Why am I paying them separately? Why is it not included? What that does is that increases administration costs. Because now you don't separately get something, so that's an added, say, 5% to the bill of rate. That really went, that really did blow my mind. And a lot of people were like, all of a sudden they have a late medical bill of several $1,000s. They don't know why. I paid my bill and I like, what I mean? So that's my biggest curiosity right there. And
Katie, can you make sure we get TJ's email? And we'll,
I don't know where you're going to go. Healthcare is one of the key in business, and I'll explain to you why people don't understand. If you have a sick society, all of our money goes to healthcare. It doesn't go back into trade, into business, into schools. If you have a sick society, it doesn't work. All the money goes there. But if we create a generally healthy population who can work, willing to work, can go to work, and feel safe at work, because hey, I have decent health care and I'm able to work. Believe it or not, it's been proven in Britain, improving in Canada, businesses will improve. Your economy will improve. Right now, we are number one in the world that we spend on healthcare dollars, yet we get the least amount of care for our dollars. I mean, for every dollar you spend, you get so much less than you do in South America, in Russia, in all these other countries. And they're, like you said, they're 17, I think 9 years old. The healthcare we used to see on the videos of all the investments, when you go overseas, these hospitals are so much better than hospitals that used to be worse than us. The doctors used to be. But now, their business is booming, and we're sucking in. And we have the highest death rate of children. Our rate of death for newborns is higher than almost a huge amount of people. And you would think, you know, we are in America.
TJ, thanks for your service. I do not understand how you charge for your baby. You're a U.S. citizen.
It's a loophole in the law. I wasn't present on the ground, so she.
But you were deployed.
But she becomes legally a citizen of the country.
Something's wrong.
Yeah. That's a little part of the English.
It was really broken. Let me see if I can. Let's finish with you because you're handling. And I'll be glad to stay around and talk to you. Listen to you.
Just really way off from tonight's subjects, not what brought me here tonight, but the military drills that are going to go on in San Antonio.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about that?
I think we ought to be welcoming those special forces training groups to Texas.
Do you think there will be martial law?
No, I don't. I think, you know, those training exercises, one way or the other, have been occurring for 40 years. Texas is a great place for it. One, we're very welcoming to the military. No one has more no one has more veterans in the country than Texas. And our terrain is like some of the hostile countries they're going to be fighting in. So these are the special operations forces from 4 different branches. They have to do this training. They're the best of the best. I'm actually glad they're here. I know we get a lot of people don't trust this government, you know what I mean? And so I understand all that. Here's just one thought. If the government was ever going to take over the country, you'd think they'd start in Texas. I mean, we got 500,000 people with concealed handgun licenses. We got millions of rifles. Who knows what goes on? My guess is they'd start in Maine or Vermont, or, you know, they're not taking over the country. But the point being, I know they don't trust, people don't trust the government in a lot of ways, not just that, in a lot of ways. And so it's understandable, but no, these exercises are a little critical, and these are the best of our best training. So I think it's a good thing. I'd rather have them training. What's that? You know, they do in North Carolina, they do in South Carolina, Georgia, it's the sea games. Yeah, well, if you see them in the Walmarts, we'll know all we're in.
They usually choose different states. In Florida, about 5 years ago, I think you heard about 2 years ago, we had that killed by a sheriff. They were at a pickup truck doing the thing, and an accident happened. It's the same exact mission that's going on here in Texas, it's happening in Florida. North Carolina gets it every single year. They actually have a festival. It's actually like a festival, and they actually go in there, get the town, they see the town, it's real people, it's a real event. It's the only way that the military can learn protection. You know,
Thank you. But thanks for asking that, because we get that question a lot these days. We just do. And so
I think that was added in that question. Well,
good. Now we do not have anything to fear. We ought to hope their exercises go really well. You know, because it's good. Look, again, thank you for being here today. There's so many issues going on. We didn't touch on a lot of them. So I'll be glad to see it. By the way, if you got a question or an issue you want us to follow for you, put it down. We got on our website, we got an e-newsletter we send out every other week, I think. We got alerts on issues coming up. You know, you can weigh in on our Facebook page. So I want to, look, I work for you guys. So, and I need to know what's on your mind. I don't have the answer to all questions. Don't. And so I rely on you to help me find those solutions. So if we can keep in touch and stay engaged, that would help me do a better job for you. So thanks for letting me work with you up there.